I love to watch Zion Williamson play. And when the Duke Blue Devils take the floor tonight, I, just like everybody else, will be watching. Tonight is it's big boy basketball. You got the Blue Bloods. Duke, Carolina, Kentucky, Michigan State, right? Like 4 programs synonymous with college excellence, synonymous with great coaching and great players, and you have likable stories across the board. Carolina and their style, P.J. Washington returning, we think, for the Kentucky Wildcats, and all that Kentucky has to offer with John Calipari. Duke with Zion and Coach K, and Michigan State, who has a little bit of the little engine that could, considering the injuries and the 2 departures to the NBA, which has seemingly made Michigan State a better team. But I was listening to Colin's show earlier this week, and if he took calls, I would have been the first caller. If he looked at his phone, which he sometimes does during a break, I would have texted him. Instead, I was driving on the 405, and I'm like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? Because what Colin did was he took a tweet from Paul Pierce, and then he doubled down on it. Paul Pierce said, and this was from his Twitter account, hot take for all of you, Zion Williamson is already a top 50 current basketball player in the world. Now, look, I can sit here and debate back and forth with Paul Pierce, who is a contemporary. He and I were actually roommates way back when at the ABCD camp, and he said, I'm going to be the best player in high school basketball, and he probably was in 1995. That's a class that had Kevin Garnett, was probably the best player, Stephon Marbury, and you got Vince Carter. Paul was right there. This was, in fact, a hot take. Because in order to be a top 50 basketball player in the world at 18 years old, that would make him better than the top 2 players on every team. And keep in mind that some teams have more than top 2 players, right? Like, name me a Golden State Warrior starter who Zion Williamson is better than today. And what we're doing is we're conflating an argument. Would you trade an all-star to get Zion Williamson? Maybe, and maybe yes. Yes. Look, I see it. He's the next version of Draymond Green, a guy who can guard any position and can kind of play any position. He can actually shoot the basketball a little bit, whereas Draymond's shot has fallen off. His body has kind of fallen apart, whereas, with the exception of twisting a knee because his shoe blew up, there's been no issues with Zion Williamson's body. But Colin said he's a top 20 player right now. And I want you to take a breath, because you're going to have to stop and tell me who he's better than. You know, is he better than LeBron or James Harden or Paul George or Kawhi or Joel Embiid or Steph or Giannis or Kevin Durant or Damian Lillard or Devin Booker or Kemba or Jimmy Butler or Ben Simmons or Klay Thompson or Kyrie? No. Do you know how you lose games in the NBA when you're trying to tank? You play your younger players. The same argument we make against people who sit at seats like this on TV channels and radio networks like this and say Duke could compete with NBA teams like the Cleveland Cavaliers is the exact same argument I'll make about Zion. Look, there's a legit conversation to be had that NBA people are trying to figure out. Is Ja Morant actually a better prospect than Zion Williamson? Zion Williamson is a happening. He makes basketball fun. He makes you think the impossible might be possible. But I hate to be the guy that throws cold water on this thing. But if you watched yesterday, you realize that Purdue lost 4 starters and is playing in the Elite Eight. Texas Tech lost 4 starters and is playing in the Elite Eight. Hell, even Michigan lost Mo Wagner, their one pro from last year, and Muhammad Ali Abdul-Rahman, and they're just as good in terms of wins and losses as they were last year. Michigan State's going to play tonight. They lost their 2 lottery picks and don't have a lottery pick on their team, and they won the Big Ten and won the Big Ten tournament. Why is that? Well, the truth is that college basketball is trending the way of college baseball. Look, if you're anything or any good, you're You at least think you're a one and done. Think about how many guys have left early. And so the attrition of guys leaving early has allowed programs like the Nevadas of the world, to compete. Or even Gonzaga, where you have late bloomers like a Brandon Clark. The idea is this. You have to understand who Zion is competing against. He does look like a man against boys because he's playing against boys. When you're a boy playing against men, you look like a boy. If you've seen him in person, you know that upper body, he looks like a brick you-know-what house. But his lower body is still thick. He hasn't yet leaned out. He hasn't yet lost all that body fat. He's just now beginning to shoot the basketball, kind of a set shot from college three-point range. Hey, in the NBA, here's the saying. You don't get longer. You don't get faster. Everybody else does. The shots are deeper. Yes, the floor opens up and you can score more, but you can also get exposed more. Look, I'm not sitting here going to tell you Zion Williamson stinks or that eventually he doesn't project to be a likely all-star. I love him. But at 18 years old, with 20 games under his belt, playing for the Duke Blue Devils, as an undersized power forward who continues to improve and impress, let's catch our breath. In order for him to be a top 20 player in the NBA, he has to be better than 2/3 of the league's best players on their team. And that's just, look at D'Angelo Russell, who was the number 2 pick, who absolutely dominated college basketball. He comes out, and it's not till year 4 where he's an all-star. That doesn't mean that Zion won't be better than D'Angelo Russell, but right now, if you're going to play a game tomorrow, no one on earth in the NBA who loves basketball and loves Zion Williamson would take Zion ahead of D'Angelo Russell. No one. Not a single soul. Not a human being. I mean, you wouldn't take him ahead of Jason Tatum, would you? Of course not. Jason Tatum's got a couple years in the league now, plus the year under his belt at Duke. You wouldn't take him ahead of Kemba Walker, would you? Look, I'm already 3 deep on the Boston Celtics. He'd be 3 deep on the Boston Celtics roster, and I haven't gotten to Al Horford. Al Horford, well, he moves, he's slow. Yeah, but you know what? If I want to win a basketball game tonight, not look good, not dunk good, I take Al Horford. 6 days a week, twice on Sunday. Let's not conflate the argument about what he could project to be and why some people may move mountains in order to get him with the conversation of what he is today. Have reasonable expectations. The reason you play young players in order to tank is because they're just not as good as the older players. They haven't yet hit their basketball prime. Let's stop making insane arguments. Insane arguments like, he's a top 20 player in the world. No, he's not. He's probably not a top 50 player in the world. Is he a top 50 prospect? Would you rather have him than 30 other guys in the NBA? Maybe. Sure. I'll have that conversation. But this is like the conversation of, would you trade LeBron James? You can't, because he's not moving. It's not happening. Stop having conversations over things that aren't possible and aren't comparable. He looks like a man against boys because he's playing against boys. Anyone who pays any attention will tell you that that college basketball, as much as I love it, I've covered it for 16 years, I played it for 5. I've been around it my entire life. I'm going to take my son to the Final Four. This is like my 13th or 14th Final Four that I've been to. Actually, maybe more. I got to redo my math. I can quote chapter and verse in all of them. And the reason he looks like a man playing against boys is because he's playing against boys. And a boy playing against a man looks like that. So catch your breath. Understand that what a guy projects to be is not what a guy is now. Enjoy this ride, whether it ends tonight against Virginia Tech, who does have grown-ups, who does have more man-like bodies, or if it ends in a national championship crowned in Minnesota, where Duke has won 2 national titles. However it ends, just enjoy it. Know that he's probably going to be the first. He might be the second-round pick. And people are having a discussion about, hey, boy, I kind of like Ja, and Ja Morant is a dominant ball-handling point guard, which you look around the NBA, and from the rookies, like Trae Young, or, maybe even Luka, who's not really a point guard, but like a point power forward, guys that have the ball in their hands more. And then you go to a James Harden, and you go to a Steph Curry, and you go to a Damian Lillard, or you go to a Russell Westbrook. Those guys have the ball in their hands so much. They make so many more plays. They have a better value. This is like a quarterback, like a Kyler Murray versus a Nick Bosa, right? That's essentially what this argument is. Ja Morant is a Kyler Murray type. Quarterbacks have way more value than a defensive end, no matter how highly rated a defensive end is. And I think having a small ball power forward center, even if he's only 6'5.5", 6'6", if he can guard all 5 positions, and he can make a shot, he can pass, he has a high basketball IQ and a ridiculous pair of legs, he has value. That's an actual conversation taking place. But nobody who's reasonable is having a conversation whether or not he's a top 20 player in the world, because we know it's men and he's playing against boys.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd, or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.